Hello and welcome to this episode of the Reset Podcast. I'm your host, Laura Mignot. This is part of my 29 Days of Magic series where I interview amazing Black women every single day for 29 straight days. And today, I'm super excited to have Latashia DeVeaux, who's a talent relations guru, on the show. She has an amazing story and I can't wait for you to all take a listen. Hi, Latashia. How are you?
Hello, Laura. How are you, my dear? I'm very well.
I'm so glad to hear that and delighted to finally have you on the podcast. It took like 3 years, but hey,
I know,
like,
but you are worth the wait.
oh, thank you, ma'am. I appreciate that. Um, I just know first question is always the same, answers always awesome. So, Latasha, what was your first job?
My first job was as a temp at 15 years old. I had no idea what a temp was. I had no idea about the industry. I just knew, like, look, I want to work. I need to earn some money. I don't want to keep asking my mom, let me hold $5. And like a really good friend of mine whose mom owned a temp agency was like, hey, you know what? I need someone to come sit at my desk, answer my phones, help just do some, administrative work and just a run of just run things. And that was my first job, 15 years old.
Oh, I love that. That's amazing. I love this for you. Okay, so that's how we start. How do we get to be having this conversation right here, right now? What was that career journey like?
So how you and I literally got here was by introduction of a wonderful individual that you and I both know and absolutely adore and love. But I would say, in undergrad, I was actually going to school for law. And a professor was like, hey, you know what? So I looked at all the lists of schools you were applying to. Girl, you ain't gonna want to go there because he knew that I do not like cold weather. Like right now, it's raining. I love the rain when I don't have to be in it. But I literally just fell into communications and publicity because I kind of pivoted because I decided not to go to law school. I really didn't like, I love law, but I realized over time I didn't want to practice it. So I had an internship, after undergrad, I had an internship at NBC. The former president, who was an amazing woman at that time, just saw me talking to any and everyone. It was talent on the lot. And I didn't know that basically there's protocol and there's rules and there's lanes. That's not how I was raised. It was, hey, you see someone, you speak. Just, basically home training. And she saw me talking to talent and just having organic, authentic conversations. When she called me to her office, she's like, you should consider, do you know what PR is? Do you know what publicity is? And I'm like, not as a career. I learned about it in school, but I don't know what that means. So she's like, you are a natural dot connector. You are a great conversationalist. She's like, and you're actually really no nonsense because you don't care who it is. You will have you will have conversations with people at every level, but being yourself. And I was like, then I didn't know, I was like, oh, that was sweet. But it was a beautiful compliment that I think just over the next 30 years, I've always held in my heart, like, okay, how do I do what I do being myself? And it kind of led me to here. So I started off as a publicist for many, many years and naturally working with talent, navigated and pivoted into specifically working as in talent relations, basically managing and communicating.
Wow. So basically, that's always been your thing of just finding the people, putting them together, and being able to communicate. I love
Pretty
it.
much, yeah. Yeah, being able to communicate with all people at every level and being able to communicate difficult and uncomfortable conversations, but in a way that's digestible, but also real and honest.
I love that. That being real and being honest is the most important part of all of this because there are people who will be like, "Yeah, you can totally do this." Like, no, you can't. Stop lying to them.
There you go. And how do you tell them that? Like, and I always tell people, everybody think their baby is the prettiest baby in the bunch. No, they're not. They really are not. I'm not going to tell you your baby is ugly, but I will tell you, no, your baby is not what we're looking for this opportunity. There is space and there is a place, but this is not the place or the space right now.
Yeah, you need to give people what I need to know. They need to know what they need to know. That's the key. All right. So speaking of that now, so talk to me about time you had a challenge in your career where you're like, there's no way I'm going to figure this out or get through it. And then you did.
You know what? I would say, gosh, probably maybe a couple of years ago, in my former workplace, it was, basically I was building in creating and designing a department as I went along, doing something that was not new in the entertainment industry, but was new for an organization when there was no foundation, no support, no resources. I mean, resources, not even just financial resources. There was no bodies. So I have always been very much a team player and I thrive in a team environment, but also being a leader as well. And I am one like, I like to look to the right and the left to be able to ask questions. I also like to learn along the way. I don't care how experienced I am. I love learning. That fuels me. And so I was tasked with not only building the department, but having to communicate at a very high level on what will be our footprint in a very noisy space. How do we operate at a Laura Mignot level or Netflix level, but with Latashia DeVeaux resources and dollars? I'm not always looking at what everybody else is doing, but how can we do the things with what we have? You got to give me something, but how do we do that? So it was one really, I mean, when I say having to be firm in my conversation and an advocate in what I knew, but also how do I tap into resources outside of the organization because there was a job to do. I knew I had to do my job and I wasn't going to get the support that I needed. So thank God for being the person that I am personally and professionally outside of that organization to get the help that I needed to do my job and deliver well.
Oh, I love that. Like, I'm just gonna figure this out.
There you go.
That's all
There
there
you
is to
go.
it.
There you go. And I think that's, how we as Black people, but more specifically as Black women, we're always figuring things out. And that really means opening up your mouth and asking for help. Because, we know closed mouth don't get fed. So I'm like, okay, who do I ask without misusing and abusing them? And find ways to, hey, I may not be able to compensate you a lot, but you will be compensated, even if it comes out of my own pocket. But really, the challenge was just asking for help and knowing who to ask and not being ashamed. Because I was terrified, to almost paralyzed by the work that I had to do and not having the resources. I tried to figure out, and I wasted so much time trying to figure it out. It's like, girl, do you know all these people who do this? You ain't reinventing the wheel. Just ask for help. And it was just nuggets that I got from so many different people that helped me be successful in one part of my role.
Yeah, it's also like you also have to we have to just take off the cape and saying that we're super women. Like, no,
Yeah,
we're not. I often say we are not from Krypton. So we are
there
not
you
super
go.
women. We don't know every single thing. It is not, it just isn't that, it's not possible. And
And
so
don't want to
I'm,
be. I don't
I'm,
want to be
and neither
Superwoman.
do I. Oh my God, I do not. No, thank you. Take me to the spa. I have no desire to be superwoman. That doesn't mean I don't want to be in charge and I want to lead and guide folks, but also it just means like, hey, there's a time and place for everything, and it shouldn't always be on us. Like, Black women will save the world. I mean, the current climate we're having right now, it's like, oh, what's going on? I'm like, waiting for Black women to tell us what to do. Nope. Like, you will figure it out because we need to take a step back and not be superwomen.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, all the really awesome things that you've done and all the things that you've been able to achieve, what do you think you tell 18-year-old Latasha?
Ooh, you know what? That no is an answer, and no is a complete sentence. Period.
I love.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I remember, asking a former boss. She was in the process of creating a much needed role at an organization. And she had no idea that what she was creating and asking my opinion on, like, that's what I did outside of me being at the company and I was there temporarily. Like, that's what I did. And I was like, well, I know you outside of this company. Like, what you're creating is how you met me, and I'm interested. And it took 3 weeks for her to respond to my calls and my emails. Now, mind you, she would reach out to me about so many other things, but she would never answer my question about, hey, can I get a meeting with you to discuss this? And finally, when it happened, it was like, oh, I didn't know you were interested. And I was like, well, you know, I was interested because you never would respond. He was like, oh, I didn't know like was your expertise, but she saw me in a different capacity. This was a senior role, and she saw me in this mid level where, and I was like, well, I'm doing what I got to do. I have to take care of my family. But outside of this, here are my credentials. You can speak to all of our peers, your peers. They can tell you, hey, this is what she's done. Just things happen, and I'm here. And after finally having the meeting, was all of 2 minutes. I'm like, okay, I'll take the 2 minutes. Never heard anything. Follow up, follow up, follow up. Never heard anything. And it was someone said, sweetheart, that is your answer. I was like, whoa, baby. Honey, when I tell you that was a hard but such a beautiful lesson that I take that with me all the time. I'm like, if I could have told 18-year-old Tasha, Latashia, no, that is your answer. And it's a complete sentence, respectfully, and walk away.
It is. No is yes, no, and we're done.
There you go.
Like, yep. No no means no. No means yes, I'm done, and we're done here. I love that you were like, yeah. I think if a lot of younger folks understood that that's what it actually means, it would help
Mm-hmm.
immensely for
Agree.
a lot of people. Oh my God, yes, it would. Just get it better. So obviously, you have a lot to do. You're changing the world and knocking everything out in the world of talent relations and management. What does Latasha do for self-care?
Nothing.
I know.
Nothing. I love a good rub down. I love a good massage. I
Okay.
love a good facial. But I have gotten to a point where if you would have asked me this last month, if you would have asked me this a year ago, it would have been, hey, honey, I love a good plane. I love a plane and a great hotel to go somewhere. But I have my home set up to where I don't have to run from it, run away from it. My home is very inviting. It is filled with love, maybe crazy, but filled with love. And there are days when I don't do anything. That is my form of self care because I have been in spaces where every single minute was filled with work having to be done or some foolishness or putting out fires or not, or, just having to just wake up and like, okay, business as usual. Let me put on a brave face and just push through. And I am now at this point in my life, at this young, big age, where self care for me is doing nothing. And I don't allow anything or anyone to shame or guilt me into, okay, well, you ain't got nothing to do, girl. Won't you do? No, I don't want to do anything. Doing nothing is my form of self care. So, what I do now is if I have a day where I don't have anything on my calendar and that involves activities for my son or doing something with my husband, I do nothing. I may just lay in the bed, watch Korean dramas because I'm so obsessed with Korean programming, like obsessed. I'll watch that. And then I may take another day to catch up on work that I enjoy doing. For example, I'm, a board member on various boards. And so I don't always have the time to do that work. So I may take an extra day to do what I want to do, which is, oh, let me go through my to-do list and do things just for that. That is my form of self-care. Nothing. And I love
Listen, I aspire. I would love to. You are a role model that I look up to because the joy of doing nothing is just wonderful and
Yes.
necessary. I think the idea of like stopping, not working, it's just like, what? You can't do that. Yes, you should. Not yes, you
Mm-hmm.
can't. Yes, you should.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Yeah.
stop.
Because
Um,
I've learned that what I am constantly learning, and I will say just, being adult women, grown women, just I would say in the past year, but like in a matter of just 2025 alone, I am learning more and more that I am the prize in 2025, period. I am the prize in 2025 because I tell people that I show people that who I care about, who matter to me, that they are the prize. It's time for me to not only say that to myself, but show that to myself and exhibit that. Like, you know what, baby? People have said that to you. You didn't believe them. Know your worth, sweetheart. You are the prize. Tasha, I am the prize in 2025, period.
I love that. I am prized in 2025. Put on a t-shirt, girl. Put on a t-shirt. So, question for you now. Do you have a give and or ask of the audience?
Ooh, and ask. That's a really good question. And I am a giver. What can I give the audience? Because I think asking something of them, I feel greedy. You know what I would ask? Like, be kind to yourself. That is my ask, to really be kind to yourself. Yes, be kind to others, but be kind to yourself.
I love that.
Then, mhm.
That's an amazing ask. I think we don't do that enough, especially as Black women. We are not kind to ourselves. We put the world on
No,
our shoulders and the mountains on our back. And it's like, for what? No,
right.
don't. Just be kind to yourself. I think it's a brilliant ask. And then last question for you.
Mhm.
What's one thing that gives you joy?
Ooh, you know what gives me joy is being honest with myself. I would say being able to self audit and self reflect. And I know that may seem weird, but I am one where friends, colleagues, people can share things with me, share, I won't say tough or sensitive information or concerns with me. And I can really sit with that and internalize, reflect, audit, and do different and do better. And what brings me joy is being honest with saying, Lord, am I the weapon formed against myself where I'm not able to prosper? And when I get my answer on, hey, maybe I need to remove to have that infinite joy, happiness and joy, because happiness can be temporary, but that joy, it's the honesty with myself because then I'm able to be honest with others. That's what brings me joy.
See now, why do to everybody at church? That's just a whole sermon in like 10 seconds. Ma'am, really? I love it. That's phenomenal. And wow, that's a really interesting. Okay, that is the most unusual answer I've had for this question this year. So the most sermon type I've had. So fantastic. Thank you so much for that. I added that question this year because I wanted it to be something that we end every episode on and this like whatever joy looks like. And I think with the way that you just explained it is so fantastically beautiful. So thank you so much. I loved it.
Thank you.
So, Miss Tasha, you've been fantastic. I know it has been like 3 years for us to try and get this together, but it was so worth the wait. You are fantastic and wonderful and lovely. And thank you so much for being part of 29 Days of Magic. I mean, just absolutely wonderful. And we'll put details in the show notes for folks to connect with you.
Absolutely. I appreciate you so much. I am so thankful and very grateful for you and for this outlet and this platform because we need it. It is needed. You are needed and you are loved. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. It's so wonderful. Thank you so very much. And thank you so much for being part of 29 Days of Magic. And that is our show.